What the heck is a living trust and what should I name it? I'm estate planning attorney Mike Smith with Smith Barid LLC, and I'm one half of the estate planning guys. One of the questions we frequently get from clients is, what the heck is a living trust? And then a follow-up to that is often like, once we're working with somebody on a living trust, what should I name this thing? What should I name my trust? So let's take the first part of that. What is a living trust? A living trust, quite simply, is a bucket into which you place your assets. You see that? And as long as you are alive and you're competent, you're holding the handle to the bucket. So you make all the decisions about what goes into the bucket, what comes out of the bucket, everything that happens with the bucket. So you make all the decisions. You're the trustee while you're alive and you're competent. If you should become incompetent, so for example, if you suffered a brain injury and you couldn't make decisions for yourself anymore, or you develop dementia, the person that you've selected will take over management of the bucket without having to go through any court process, ask permission from anyone. So it's a very simple way to make sure that someone can step into place and take care of you, take care of your financial assets if you become incapacitated without having to go through any kind of court process. Likewise, when you die, with a living trust, the person that you've selected as the trustee will simply take over the handle to the bucket, and they will manage those assets in the trust for your benefit or for the benefit of the beneficiaries after you've died. So they will be able to take those assets out of the trust and then distribute them out to the beneficiaries so they can give them to Luke, for example. So that in a nutshell is what a living trust is. And it's a great tool for estate planning because it avoids probate if you're incapacitated. It avoids probate when you die. And it also allows you to avoid multiple probates. So if you owned property in multiple states, so for example, if you had a vacation home in a different state than where you reside, a living trust allows you to avoid multiple probates. If we don't have a living trust in place with that scenario, then we have to file probate in the state where you reside when you pass away, and we have to file probate in the state where you own the rental property, the vacation property. With a living trust, we avoid all that. We don't have to do probate in either one of those states. So those are three of the primary reasons for doing a living trust. The other nice thing about a living trust is that you can change it anytime you want to. So there's a big difference and distinction between a revocable living trust and an irrevocable trust. An irrevocable trust, I like to think of that as it's set in stone, so we can't make changes to it. So think of the bucket, but then we're going to put a lid on the top of the bucket, and that's an irrevocable trust, so you can't take anything out of the bucket. A living trust, unlike an irrevocable trust, does not have that lid on the bucket, so you can change it anytime you want to. So that's what the heck a living trust is. Now the other thing that's a follow-up question to that frequently is, what should I name this thing? And you know, the reality is it doesn't make that much difference what you name it. Typically, you know, we have clients that will name it with their surname. So I'm Mike Smith, so I might name mine the Smith Family Living Trust, for example. One thing to keep in mind is if you use the name Living Trust in the trust and then later want to amend the trust for Medicaid planning purposes, long-term care purposes, or to make it an irrevocable trust for some reason, if you have the name Living Trust in there, it can be a bit of a red herring. It would mean that somebody reviewing the trust may assume just because it's named Living Trust that it's not in fact the right type of trust for that scenario. So you might want to leave the name Living out of it and just call it the Smith Family Trust. Also, one thing that sometimes comes up is clients sometimes tell us they want extreme privacy around their trust. Now, a living trust is not, there are other ways that you can accomplish privacy. A living trust is more private than a will because it doesn't have to go through that court process, the probate process. But if you think about, if you're putting your house into this bucket, if you own the house in your own name and then you execute a deed transferring it into the bucket, it's not really a mystery as to what's going on there. And there are steps you can take by creating intervening LLCs, for example, where you might transfer the property into an LLC and then into the trust from the LLC. That would give a little bit more privacy in that type of situation. But if you're really concerned about privacy, there are other tools that we would use in our toolbox for that sort of application. So I would not use the word living in the name, and typically we're going to use like a surname like Smith Family Trust, that sort of thing, to name it. But you can name it whatever you want to. So I've had clients who have come in and used very creative names for their trust. Like, you're not going to get my last dollar trust, that sort of thing. It's totally up to you. You can name it whatever you want to. Thanks for joining me today. I'm Mike Smith, an estate planning attorney with Smith Barid LLC. If you'd like to talk to us about helping you put together an estate plan, click the button below to schedule a discovery call. I hope you enjoyed that video. If you did, then take a moment right now to subscribe by clicking below and turn on the bell notification so you get notified every time we post up a new video. Right now we're posting 3 videos a week with lots of information about various estate planning topics, so you're going to want to make sure to stay on top of that. Click below to subscribe and click right over here to watch the next most relevant video about estate planning. Go watch it now.